Welcome to High Capacity, the podcast that helps you expand your nervous system's capacity so you can have the career and the family and the goals and actually enjoy them. I'm your host, Michelle Grosser. I'm a trial attorney turned nervous system strategist. If your life is full by every measure and your nervous system is feeling it, this is your show. Every Tuesday, I'm here to unpack the nervous system science behind why you feel wired, overwhelmed, and depleted, and give you real tools to actually do something about it. Let's dive in. You're listening to High Capacity. It's Michelle here. So let me set a quick scene for you and tell me if you guys relate to this in any way. Jeff and I are on the highway. He's driving. I'm in the passenger seat. Someone cuts us off and he slams the brakes, okay? His immediate response is to lay on the horn and be frustrated and want to give this guy a piece of his mind. My immediate response is to apologize to the driver who cut us off, right? Maybe Jeff should have put his blinker on sooner. Maybe he was going too fast. Same exact stimulus, two completely opposite responses. And neither of us chooses it, right? Our nervous system chooses it for us. I saw this same pattern play out for years, even in my law practice. Like when an opposing counsel was being particularly belligerent, my law partner, kind of like Jeff, right, would want to call him up and put him on blast and put him in his place. And my default was to just kill him with kindness, to be extra patient and calm and accommodating. And I wasn't doing that because I was more patient or calm or accommodating. It's not like that was the more righteous approach. I wasn't regulated when I was doing that. It's not that it didn't get to me. For me, it was fear dressed up as professionalism, right? I was fawning from a place of dysregulation, not from a place of like choosing how I was going to show up. And here's what I want to get into today is that the way in which we respond to stressors, these are not personality traits, i.e. they're not just like inherent parts of our character that we were born with. They're not evidence that something is like either really good or really wrong with us. They're just adaptations. They're ways in which we've learned to deal with stress over time based on, sure, some of our own propensities, but also on the things that we've experienced in life. So every Tuesday, we talk about a different area of capacity. And today we're going to talk about stress capacity, okay? The ability to expand your stress capacity, your nervous system's ability to handle things that are stressful without automatically defaulting into survival mode. So we're going to talk about the 4 different stress responses today. I want to tell you guys first what they are, right? Why they fire automatically. And then I want to just touch on why when we're trying to manage them with just like forcing it or willpower or discipline, that's probably going to be a losing game. And we'll talk about it. Okay. So the 4 survival responses, stress responses are fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. You've probably heard of being in fight or flight, right? We know a freeze response when we feel kind of shut down, overwhelmed, where we're kind of paralyzed. Dissociated, disconnected, burned out. And then the fawn response is like the people pleasing response, right? Again, these aren't parts of your personality. They're not, they're not even like Enneagrams or something like that, where it's like, this is my type. These are just adaptive responses that your nervous system has built probably really early on in life to help you deal with stuff, right? To keep you safe, to deal with things that felt intense or threatening or overwhelming. And they fire automatically, way below our conscious awareness, faster than we can even think and process. And they've probably been running the show in a lot of ways that we haven't even realized. So the thing that most women do with these responses, or I think most people do with these responses, is that we attach meaning to them, right? Oh, I'm too reactive. Oh, I'm too sensitive. Oh, I'm just really bad at setting boundaries, right? Oh, I'm too passive. I'm not resilient enough. Like whatever it is, we let that internal narrative become this thing about our character. And then we try to fix it, but we try to fix it with the things that don't actually get to the root. Okay. So we try like, okay, I'm going to work on my mindset, right? I need to be more positive or more disciplined or more motivated, or we think we need, breathing reminders or communication strategies. And I think those things can help, sure, but they don't fundamentally change what's actually going on. And I think for a lot of the women that I work with, they come to me so frustrated because they've been doing all the things. And by all the things, I mean, they've been applying a productivity solution to what's actually a nervous system problem. And I think that's really the reframe I would love for you guys to leave with out of this episode. The stress responses that keep showing up, they are not a discipline or willpower or motivation or lack thereof issue. They're a nervous system issue, okay? And nervous system issues require nervous system solutions. So let's go through each of these stress response types. We'll talk about them a little bit, and then we'll come back together and I'll just share like, okay, what do we do with this now that we kind of have this awareness? All right, so let's start with the fight response. The fight response is a mobilizing response. And it's not a mobilizing response in like, I'm going to run away from the threat. It's a mobilizing response that moves toward the threat. Okay. So yes, it's protective. Yes, it's fast. It often shows up in a lot of ways that don't actually look like fighting at all. And I think that can be really interesting because for those of you that are like, oh, I'm not a fighter, let's see if any of these kind of relate to you. And maybe you show up in this way with a fight response in some situations. Maybe you show up in this response often, or maybe you don't. Maybe it just shows up in certain situations or once in a while. Either way, just having the awareness is super helpful. So it might show up like snapping at your kids, right? You're already at capacity. They ask you one more thing or don't do the thing you asked them or whine or start fighting and you just snap, okay? You scream, you yell, you get upset. It might show up like irritability when your day is not going how you wanted it to, or just when you wake up kind of irritable with a short fuse and you kind of have that edge on your voice and there's this, low-lying frustration over something that probably doesn't actually warrant it. It might even look like criticism. A lot of times when I speak to women and they're like, man, I don't know, I'm just like finding myself criticizing everything and judging everything and like no one can do it well enough or do it right. I can't rely on anyone. They just don't know how to get it done. I have to do everything myself. That's a fight response, right? Even if you're critical of yourself, or maybe you're critical of the people around you, or just critical of the way in which things get done, fight response can often look like control. So it could be the micromanaging. It could be the redoing things that people already did, right? Someone says, yeah, I handled this project. I wrote the email. I prepared the slide deck, whatever. Or maybe it's even in your family, right? Your husband's like, yeah, I made the kids lunch, and you go back through it and redo the things that people already did, because trusting, letting go, surrendering, having it not done your way and the way in which you think is the right way, can feel like a lot for your nervous system. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes I think the fight response is really obvious that that's what's going on. A lot of times, though, it's just not that loud. Sometimes it's just kind of that constant low hum of, being harder than you need to be. So that's the fight response. The flight response, also a mobilizing response, but this one moves you away from the threat. Okay. So for a lot of the women I work with, again, I think this is one of the sneakiest responses because a lot of times a flight response actually looks like productivity, right? So we clean the whole house because we're mad or anxious. We stay, and I say we because I run this, relentlessly busy, like just busy all the time, calendar full, meetings back to back, working in the evenings, working on the weekends, even busy like with our family, running around to all their different events and having to have something planned for every moment, not being able to just sit down and, enjoy yourself and check out and recharge, but having to do something productive even when you're sitting on the couch, because actually sitting still feels really uncomfortable. Maybe it's that to-do list that never ends because finishing it would mean that you'd have to slow down. And then I think it's just a lot of filling all the time, right? Like scrolling when you could be resting, planning when you could be resting, working late because you feel like you need to get ahead, right? It's not because you actually need to. I think this response also can look a lot like avoiding things, and filling it with like little mundane stuff. Okay. So if there's a hard project you need to start, a hard conversation, a hard decision to make, a lot of times with that kind of stress, we can enter into a flight response. And it's like, wow, I've organized my, desk drawer like perfectly, but I just can't get started on the thing that actually needs to get done today, right? I'm filling all that time with every other possible task we could do. It looks like being great at getting stuff done and doing, but sometimes beneath the surface, if we look a little closer, we're not so great at doing the things that actually need to get done, or just being able to be, right? Instead of just doing all the time, because flight, that's what it keeps you doing. It just keeps you moving. And as long as you're moving, then you don't have to feel the thing your nervous system is actually trying to protect you from, right? So that's flight. And then the freeze response. When you're in the freeze response, everything just shuts down, okay? The threat feels like it's too much. It's too big. If you fight it, you're going to lose. If you run, you're not going to get away. So fight or flight are not options. And your nervous system's automatic next solution is to just stop, right? To go still, to withdraw, to go quiet, to go offline. And that can look like maybe you're in the middle of a conflict, right? Maybe it's something that you have in a disagreement with your husband or with someone at work or whatever it is. And you're like in the middle of it, and all of a sudden your mind just goes blank. Does that ever happen to you? And you like cannot think of a good thing to say. And by good thing, I don't mean like the right thing. I mean like you cannot come up with the argument. Like it's not coming out of your mouth. You're just so emotionally flooded that you just black out almost, right? It's like you cannot get the words out of your mouth. That's one way the freeze response shows up. The way I see it most often is that it shows up as procrastination, right? There's a lot of things we need to do, and that overwhelm feels like too much. So our nervous system just stops. It stops us. We don't take any action. It's really hard, and we find ourselves procrastinating. And then we get the story going of like, man, I'm so lazy. Why do I always do this? Like, why can't I get it done? It's not that complicated. Like, but we're still stuck. We're still in paralysis. That overwhelm, that somehow like we can't just get started. That is usually a really good indication that you're in a freeze response. Brain fog sometimes happens when we know what we need to do, but we just like cannot get off the couch or like get out of bed or, whatever it is to do it. It's so frustrating. I've been there. It's so frustrating. But it again, it has very little to do with your character and a lot more to do with how your nervous system is responding to what it perceives as really stressful. So I think a lot of times we do mistake being in a freeze response for a lack of discipline or a lack of motivation, or even we're like, man, am I depressed? Like what the heck is going on here? It's usually not any of that, especially not with the women I work with. Like y'all are not lacking in motivation or discipline. It's usually just a nervous system that has hit its capacity. And what happens then is that, again, this is not a conscious decision you make. Your nervous system decides, all right, we're going to power down. And that's our best like option to protect ourselves, right? It's a preservation mode. And then finally, the fawn response. So fight, flight, freeze, and then fawn. Fawn keeps us safe, keeps us good, keeps us like connected to people through appeasement. Sometimes that's another word that we hear for fawn when we talk about stress responses. We'll hear fight, flight, freeze, and appease. A lot of times the fawn response comes up when the threat feels relational. Okay, so either a real threat or a perceived threat. So maybe it's a relationship at work. Maybe it's a relationship with your boss or a coworker or someone that you manage. Maybe it's a relationship with a client or a customer that feels like they're upset about something, or, there's some sort of threat to that relationship. It could be in your own family, in your marriage, with your own parents or extended family or in-laws. It could be with your friend groups, right? It's just this response that moves you toward people pleasing and over apologizing and over accommodating and kind of moving away from anything that you might need or want to express or say in that situation or relationship, and kind of suppressing all of that and really fawning over the other person and making sure that they're okay and have everything they need. So it might look like saying yes to something, right? The school asks you to be on this committee or asks you to plan this class party or pick up all of this stuff, and you say yes, even though you know that you really don't have the bandwidth or the time to do that, right? It might look like saying yes to picking up extra stuff at work, saying yes to attend a party, or, just saying yes when you really want to say no and you probably know you should say no. And then you quietly resent it. It might also look like apologizing all the time for everything, for things that aren't your fault, for breathing, for taking up space, right? For having needs. It can look like absorbing everyone else's bad moods. And when you do that, you're so uncomfortable that you feel like you have to immediately fix whatever it is that's causing someone else's bad mood or negativity or sadness or kind of like frustration. You're like, man, I just have to fix it and get them happy and then I'll be okay. So it's just that endlessly accommodating and endlessly patient. And again, not from a grounded, present, regulated way, but from a way of like, I'm just going to kind of suppress how out of control this is and pretend that everything's okay because God forbid I make you uncomfortable, right? Being endlessly available, not because you're, again, genuinely generous in these situations, but really the root of it is fear. And the root of it is that disappointing someone else feels even worse. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that everyone's okay, because that my nervous system maybe is uncomfortable, but at least my nervous system thinks it's familiar and it can tolerate it. So I think this is the response that can often look the most virtuous on the outside, right? It's like, man, she's like so easy and pleasant to be around, and she always is so helpful, and that can be true. And when we're doing it from a place of like, oh my gosh, I need to show up in this way because otherwise the world's going to just like unravel and it's going to be really bad for me. That's a very different energy than actually consciously choosing to be kind and patient and helpful, right? From a place of being grounded and regulated. So none of these are random. They're all patterned, right? And your nervous system is going to have a default. And what I mean by that is usually, our nervous system is like a library, right? So we try one of these responses when we're really little and something feels stressful or threatening. And if it works, our nervous system files that away and is like, all right, we're going to go back to this the next time because this worked well. And then we do it over and over and over, right? And that's how patterns form. So we have defaults. You probably have one or two as we went through those different stress responses that you're like, oh yeah, that's my go-to when pressure hits, right? And that default is really highly connected to your capacity pattern, which is what you default to when you've reached capacity, when you're like maxed out, you're at your bandwidth, you can't take any more. What's your go-to? So if you've taken the capacity pattern quiz and you know your capacity pattern, if you are a warrior or an architect, you might tend toward a fight response. Again, for the warriors, that's going to be more of a vocal, like out loud type of fight response. For the architects, that's going to be more of a like criticism, perfectionism as a threat response kind of response. If you're running the navigator capacity pattern, maybe you're more driven to a flight prone response. Like you're busy all the time. You're always trying to distract yourself to avoid whatever it is you don't want to deal with. If you're an anchor, you probably spend a good amount of time in a freeze response. You kind of just withdraw and hunker down and go quiet and go still. If you are a caretaker, that's the quintessential fawning response, right? Appeasing to stay safe in a relationship. So if you know your capacity pattern, I think this is probably going to click like in a new way. If you don't know your capacity pattern yet, go take the quiz. It's free. It'll take you 2 or 3 minutes. I'll put the link to it in the show notes for you guys. And it's going to show you exactly what pattern your nervous system defaults to when you're maxed out. And then I give you some tools so that when you notice that you're in pattern, you can help gently shift out of pattern and back to being in the present. Okay, so we went through the 4 different stress responses: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. What do we do with this? Well, first, you're probably going to guess what I'm going to say. Awareness is the first step, right? So just seeing this stuff clearly is actually way more powerful than we might give it credit for. The moment that we can just catch ourselves in a stress response and name it like, oh, I'm realizing right now that I'm doing that thing. That's a flight response. And I'm actually just distracting myself and staying busy. Or, oh my gosh, I just said yes to that. And I know that I really don't want to do that. I did that fawn response thing again. Every time you can just catch it and name it, you actually create distance and space. Okay. You create a gap. And that little gap, that little pause between the stimulus, whatever it was, right? That little trigger, and then your automatic response, that's where choice lives. So the more that we can identify it, realize it, call it out, that will actually expand the gap and give us more space between the stimulus and our response. So our response just isn't just an automatic reaction, but we can actually choose how we want to respond with intention. Okay. And then second, and this is the deeper work, you start building a nervous system that doesn't fire these responses as automatically or as intensely. And we don't do that by white knuckling. We don't do it by being harder on ourselves. We actually do it by expanding our stress capacity, right? How much stress can my nervous system handle before I'm automatically in fight mode or flight mode or freeze mode? Okay. That's a completely different project than trying to manage the responses after they've already fired. And that's the work. And it is genuinely possible. Okay. On June 3rd, I'm hosting a completely free live audit. I'm calling it the capacity audit. But what it means, why I want you guys there, is that together, I'm going to guide you through a little self-assessment. So you're going to go through these 5 capacity areas that I teach about. Stress capacity, emotional capacity. So what's your emotional EQ? What's your emotional regulation like? Your physical and energetic capacity. So like how energized do you feel in your body? Relational capacity, right? How do your relationships look as it relates to capacity? And then joy. So 5 different areas of capacity: stress, emotions, physical and energetic, relational, and joy. I'm not going to give you a bunch of theory. I'm not going to give you all these journaling prompts and none of that. I'm going to give you a real honest look at where your capacity actually stands in each of these 5 areas right now. I'm going to walk you through it. And then once you realize like, oh my gosh, I'm pretty good when it comes to, let's say, relational capacity or my physical and energetic capacity. But y'all, my emotional capacity is like, I need some work there, right? Or I don't remember the last time that I just had that bubbly kind of joy and I could play and be lighthearted and fun and silly. I know that that's an area I really want to expand. Okay. And I'll walk you through interpreting that pattern in real time. And here's why that matters, because I think so many of us are working really, really hard, but you're working on the wrong thing, right? You're optimizing productivity, but the real leak is actually, maybe it's emotional capacity. You're managing your schedule and like so worried about getting things tidy in there so you don't forget stuff, whatever. But really it's the upstream variable that's going to have the biggest impact, and that's your stress capacity. So this capacity audit is going to show you exactly where your highest leverage move is. And it's that one area that if you learned how to expand it, it would change everything else downstream. So you're going to leave with specific practical tools that you can start to use ASAP. Not like homework that I'm going to give you to do later, but you're going to leave with handles that you can start to put into place right now. So it's on June 3rd. It's free. It's live. Registration is open. The link for it is in the show notes. You can go there to register, or you can head over to michellegrosser.com/audit and then come back on Friday, because I'm doing another high cap move of the week. We do one every Friday, and it's going to build on what we learned today about the 4 different stress responses. So I love you all so much, and I'll see you then.
If you love Mommy's Podcast, leave a review.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. If you haven't taken the What's Your Capacity Pattern quiz yet, that is your next step. It'll tell you which of the 5 capacity patterns is driving your dysregulation, your exhaustion, your reactions, your stress, all of it. So you know exactly where to focus your energy first. It's free. It'll take you 2 minutes. The link for the quiz is in the show notes. And then come back on Friday for one practical tool, the high cap move to take into your week, because putting the stuff into practice is what is actually going to change things. All right, I'll see you on Friday.